Hi, nice to see you again. Now, the last time we spoke about the idea of minimum wage, we spoke about it in the context of globalization. And I hope by this stage you'll be internally persuaded that what we're dealing with is a very complex subject. And what I wanted to illustrate here to you is basically how the whole idea of minimum wage itself cannot be basically discussed purely as an economic discipline or a subject that deals basically with the question of whether the laws of supply and demand can be fulfilled. I think when you try to do that, it's a bit like looking at a bucket of water and drawing at the conclusion that the 7 C's are basically like this. It doesn't make any sense. There's no skill, there's no context, and there's no accuracy. So by actually opening the aperture for us to consider other issues, what we actually see is that the whole subject of minimum wage embraces not only economics, but it also takes into account geopolitics, and also it takes into account what I refer to as the psychology of the markets. Now, the psychology of the markets is something that I spoke about and touched upon very briefly in the last series, where I spoke about how increasingly nations are beginning to get very disenchanted with the whole idea of globalization and pursuing the free market enterprise. And in a sense, you cannot blame them because the economic recovery is not going well. They have to basically deal with many pressing social and financial issues such as unemployment. And many of the firms in the EU and the US are in big trouble. They need to be capitalized. And that has meant that policymakers have basically redrawn or redefined, or for whatever reason, even rescope their original idea of the free market enterprise. If you look at America today, America is no longer the paragon of what you call the free market enterprise. Not today. Not when you consider that Timothy Geithner today is pursuing a policy of deliberately debasing the US dollar, all right, in order to basically increase their competitiveness in the international market. And the way it works is very simple. If the US dollar is lower, then the people over there, the factories, the producers of goods and services, will be able to market their services at a more competitive rate. And the reason why they are pressing China in order to free float to yuan is very simple. Because one of the reasons why the US and the EU economy is stymied is because of the low yuan. The low renminbi and yuan basically is one big reason why these firms in the US and the EU cannot basically compete. They cannot compete. And when you think about it, when a country begins to debase its currency, it's a form of subsidy, right? It's a form of subsidy that is no different from governments giving money to farmers in order to produce a certain type of crop, or to buy a crop at a higher price than what it is sold in a free market enterprise. So what I'm trying to illustrate to you is that when economists try to talk about the whole idea of minimum wage in the context of just confining it to the economic theory, it's a bit like it's a bit like a doctor trying to basically tell you that the solution to all your problems is just popping pills. Look, for all you know, it could be psychological, and the psychological component, I believe, is very, very important, and it has been basically understated. And the reason why it's understated brings me to my second point in this sharing. Is because for so many years we have been scripted to only define organizational and personal success in a very narrow way. And that means that for us to make sense of, let's say, an event, we need to be able to capture it in a tangible, be it whether it's in GDP or metric form or unit of measurement. And I do not believe that is a very good culture. It's not a good culture because if you basically pursue that sort of attitude, you'll find that you miss out on about 99.9% of the other things that you cannot capture with metrics. You cannot, for example, capture happiness. You cannot, for example, capture things like the satisfaction or self-esteem and all these drivers, which are very, very, very important for not only the well-being of a nation, but also for a nation to be competitive. So I think when we talk about these other metrics, it is seldom given priority. And one of the reasons why it has not been given priority is because of people like me. People like me basically are people who go into a boardroom, and what we do is we will go there and we will only confine our examination of the facts to only mathematical theorems and basically what you call the calculus of necessity. And that has not produced any good. And that is one of the reasons why the world right now is in a fix. It's because we don't have the philosophical and the moral compass to actually guide us. The reason why America today is able to do a 180-degree turnaround and say to the rest of the world, hey, we don't mind debasing our currency in order to make sure that our factories are running 24/7, is because they have lost their philosophical underpinnings. And the reason for that is because for so many years, for 10, 15, 20 years, the whole narrative, the whole social, economic narrative has been hijacked by people who are basically trained to only see the world in a very narrow way, where they can only perceive success if it's measurable and tangible in the form of a GDP or yield or percentage gain. And I think what's important for this sharing is to state categorically and very clearly that the solution to our problem is to basically make sure that we recruit people who are outside the scope of the metric system, and to bring back the whole idea that the social and economic development of a country is basically not only the preserve of people who are basically counting and doing all the stuff which are necessary, but also to bring back the philosophers, thinkers, who can basically add value to the whole discussion. And this is something I think is missing and is greatly needed in this world. And that's all. Thank you.